You don't have a say. There's a cup up there, I don't know. I think maybe Van Sion uses them, I'm not sure.
I'll sit with that.
Oh, there's 2 olives. We'll take one of them in the meantime. See if people come in and play them.
What's that? What's that? Could have taken you with me. Could have taken you sharing with
me. Do you use both of the swine up there? You use both of the swine up on the thing?
No, I just use one.
Good. I gave one to us. Who uses the other one then?
Whoever needs it. Whoever needs it. Whoever needs it. It's just an extra one.
Oh. So it's Ayin Beis, Chelik Aleph, Amud Toflamed Gimel, Ramaso Yom Hashmini Atzeres, and the date today is Yud Oil Yud Aleph Adar Beis Tavshin Samches. The Mishnah says that that's one of the days that Megillah Nikras for Yud Aleph. That's the first day that you can actually read the Megillah. Berabim is in the Shterach Lekach. Says man Deichik V'Chulu. Yom HaKnisa, Kforim, Bnei HaKforim V'Chulu. So we saw did you one of them was yours?
No. No, I don't.
It's we saw the chilek between even Amodas Asfiris, how it is in Kedusha, to how it is in the Chad Haliyuma, the Ayin and Aklipa. We saw that in Kedusha, Kol Masha L'mayla, as Ha'oyer hu b'toikef Yisrael, and therefore the Mispah Ha'oyeres is Beribui, Godel Me'ed, V'sher Yordim Lamata, Kol Masha Yordim, B'ishtausheles Ha'oylemes, as Mismaiti Ma'eres and Mismait Hagiloi. The Ilo B'Aklipas, we saw that the so-called higher madrigas in Klippas, the Indian from Atzilus Lamashal Sheba Klippa, but that's Oiches in Yoinik from Sof Malchus to Asiyah, and therefore we saw that it's Chalish, it's Indian from Chalish is being in a Klippa, in a Toikif Shal Klippa, April to say it in Kedusha. That in Kedusha, Atzilus is Toikif Gilia Oyer, and Amiti is Toikif Hagiloi. The Ilo Beklippas, the Atzilus is the Indian from Chalishas, Bigal says it's Korev Dayan Lihin a Kedusha. Kol Mashi Yerad Lamata Misrabe ha Toikif Hagiloi Shal Klippas Sitra. Ad the innovatic the clipper which is safe and Batakias called Madregas shall Ishtausas a clippers who Lavena. What in Lavena we saw was the Maki Famiti, the Kaviohom, the take of Pnimia, the Maki Pnimia of the clippers, and was called Lavena Zako. We saw that we learned the Pshat in last week's lesson, that it was Yoinik from the Amitis Ha'atzmiyas of Malchus. How it is in Elam Asiyah, therefore it takes in itself the Amitis Haliyumas or the Inyan Amaki of Primus Malchus. That's in the Tatlis HaYerida of the Seif, the Inyan Aklippers, therefore that's the Atik Shibohem, the Lamaylam in Medida Vakbala, the Teikif Shalamaylam Yiseda, on Lamaila Misego Kaviogo, I say Kaviogo, it's not the immediate in from Lamaila Mitamadas, how it is in the Union from Sitra Achra. So, and then we were medactic in the description of the Yerida, the Eretz, how it is in the Kedusha, that in Atzilus all the spheres are made בתוקף הגילוי שלהם, אף שבפנימיוס האצילוס, פנימיוס אבא הוא פנימיוס עתיק, that the pneumius of Atzilus is really a gilui of Kesser, which is Lamaila Medida Vakbola, and therefore it's Ayin, that all the protim are not so much Bagolu or Baragosha, mitzad the Klolius of that gilui, but nonetheless, mitzad what you might call the Seder Harogel of Atzilus, and we saw that all the Esses spheres are, even though we say that the Ike Gilui in Atzilus is the union from Abor, and therefore mitzad the Pneumius, the Pneumius of Abor is Atik, and therefore in Pneumius Atzilus. After Pikeim, we say that all of the spheres in Atzilus are more taken for Gilui. The Ilu, when we hear to Indian Abrio, therefore we find that the famous Lashon which you brought down, that Eime Ilo, Mekanan of a Kursayo, Kursai Zelam Abrio, in Elam Akisai, there we see that even though Bavada Yesh Es Spheres Becholo Ilom, but the Ike Gilu, there's Mitzad Bina, Mitzad the Inifan Asoga, and therefore let's say Yerida, Lagabi, and a Yerida Shalei Ba'eret, Lagabi the Inifan Atzilas, and therefore even though there's Bavadai, the presence of all the Es Spheres, but the Ike Gilu is in Abino, and that's Gilu, the cloud of the whole Ashpa of Elam Abriya. And then we're Mashekin Antilus Af as the Ike is Ava, but that's not Monea, that all the Spheres of a Tekefat Gilu, Bishlei Musa. And then we go down, that's because it's Gilu Elakus Mamish, Leloiko, Vela Behester, Bentayim. And we go down into Yetzirah, so then it's into the Shishamidas, and until we come down into Asiya, it's Manitri Malchus, is Meya in the Inifan Asiya. What we see that that's a Inifan Seder of Yerida, and then brought also in the Oisius of the Shemavaya, what they boy from Kloli, Marea Alina Esses Spheres. Also, Atzilus is connected to Yud, and Bria connected to K, and Vov connected to Yetzirah connected to Vov, and Asiya connected to K, Tatoa of the Shemavaya Kiyodua. So we see that the Seder in Kedusha, the Tachlis and Toikif of all the Giluim is Dafkila Maila, both in Ribui and in Eiches, what we might say both Bechamasu Be'eiches, as much as we had to talk about Kamas in Elam Yisraelim, Mashenkin in the Clippers, it's B'diuk Afuch. And that's what he says now, Ach, after the bracket, Ach, Pesitra Achra, Shahin Umas Ze the Kedusha. What the Umas Ze means that it's the opposite, it's the Hofuk Mizeh, of the fact that you say it's the Umas Ze, what Umas already implies a certain parallel, that just like you have the Madregas of Atzilus and so on in the Inyan HaKedusha, then B'tzada upside down, you might say in English, B'tzada Ofuch, Yesh Kam parallel, let's say, in the Inyan of the Liumazeh. Hari Hua Eifach the Atzilus, the Klipper, I'm sorry, Hua Eifach, Hula Eifach. Why? The Atzilus, the Klipper, he begins Chalishas. Because Davke the Madrega HaElyoine in Klippa being as it close to the Mokia of the Shefa from Malchus, the Kedusha, and therefore it's in a state of Chalisha. Okay, neither the Klippa, the Atzilus, who in Haragoshes Habitl. In other words, that there is Bitl, and we'll see in a minute that it's Bitl Amiti, but there's a certain Heragish in the Inyan Abitl. And therefore, that's the Klippa which is able to be mastir keneged ha'atzil. That's a deal which finds itself in certain Drushik Siddhas, that in the Inyan and the andere Olam as Lamosha in Brio and Yetzirah, then there's a certain Inyan of Klippa ha'mastir with this betuch ha'olam ha'u. And that's only what we say that in Brio it's Machta al Machta, or Yetzirah, in Brio we say it's Rov Gila de Kedusha en de klippers op beginnen smiert en in Yetzirah macht al macht ze we basie ze afuch en een van Riboy de klippers en miert in a Kedusha aber Amerika de een van klipper how it is in Atzilus is not mamish in Oilama Atzilus. Now we said it's a klipper which is mastir keneged Atzilus. It's kilo oimet ba'avdola mesuyemas from Atzilus, but it's able to be mastir ktat, or I might call it's kilo madher dior ktat, how it is in Atzilus. But ilu in the other Oilamas, you can talk about an actual presence of the klippers betech oiser ha'olam. So what's the union from the klippers keneged ha'atzilas? And he said that's the union of hargoshes habitl, shenikra ri'u ma, shabitl hu b'murgash. Yeah, it's in a state of being felt. The amit is habitl hu she'ena magish klal shehu botel. Well, that's the famous lashon which occurs at the end of Parsha Vayislach, the state of einer von der Rufe Esau. Upilagshoi Ushmo Riu Mo. They had a Pelagish and her name was Riu Ma. So it comes again the Sifri Kabbalah and they say that Riu Ma is two words, Riu Ma. So Ma is even from Bittel, and you can't take it away. Ma is Bechol Mokim Ayin from Bittel. And Bittel al Tzadanoche. Bittel, we might say Biemet. It wasn't even from Riu Ma. That he would like that the bittul be seen. We'll see, but that's only a madrega gasa in the zach. But Riu means, give a cook, which means that be'ez oifen, he feels his bittul. And therefore, that's called haragoshes habittul. So when you think about it, those two expressions, they, as it were, laugh one at the other. Because if you say haragoshes habittul, then it's like it's two contradictory phrases. Because the word bittul means ain matzias, ain me. Haragosha means feeling, awareness. Haragosha and bittul don't come together outside amiti. And therefore he said that bittul keneged atzilas is riu ma. But if you slow, then you don't riu. I feel in the Indian from ma is that maleknist. It's even though maybe you do riu ma is that cornish. That in the Hechel Reilam is
all levels of bitul, all levels of bitul b'metzius.
Yeah.
Riu ma.
Is there all levels of bitul b'metzius.
Is there a difference?
I'm sorry.
Bitul b'metzius.
Yeah,
Riu ma is there a difference?
No. Riu ma is Riu is a touch. Take a look. You remember the word Riu is not Lamar Yusa. The union from Riu is not. It's a union from Ria. This doesn't the kretch. The kretch is that there's somebody who says, "Look at my bittul." Have you got that? Riu ma.
Hargoshes a bittul.
You understand? So what we're saying is that there is a union from ma. There is, and the union ma b'kol mochim is a mitzvah is a bittul. But nonetheless, it's the union shel Hargosha. He feels himself. And therefore, in a very dachistic even, he says l'gabi himself. He says to himself, Riu ma. You understand? He himself is requiring of himself to see his own bittul. In other words, he feels the bittul. You got the idea, doesn't it? Not the word Riu is a maiva, not the word Riu is the shiftless bittul. Amira, says the Rebbe, that's it, the klipper shekeneged atzilas, because it is botel, but it's in the oven van Hargosha. And it's well known, the Bekol Mokim, the Inyan van Hargosha is, like you might say, the beginning of the end, in a way, but wherever there's Hargosha, and that's only the start of an achiza in Ezeshu Inyan, that can be mistayev, and that's what you do, the famous beer. And it's in the Maimaim of the Rebbe in Shmos Eid in Ayin dort in Yuntis Kislev. There's a whole beer But the Rebbe Masber there, what was the Indian from Chet Eitzadas? How did it begin, the Indian from Chet Eitzadas? How could it possibly be an Adam Arishan? And when you think about it, it's Taki Apliya Atzuma She'ein Kamoya. I mean, Adam Arishan was such an unbelievable. Yeah, but Madrege is Koyde Machet with the Al Inyanim. How did he come to us Ayin of Chet and Azar serious even what this is over Al Rotzen Avaya? Wie kommt das am Tag? So the Rebbe begins over there and he says that the whole thing began that Adam Arishan was Margish.
Did we have it here?
Yeah, we did. We've mentioned it on one or two occasions. Yeah. No, at least Baruch Hashem, you remember.
It was the last time I was there.
Yeah. Well, niet in een leven van een mol, because you know the famous quote. Chassidim say a mol is a molik. If you say a molik is zachen, it's once upon a time. That's an issue. In Mamela is not that we learned that a molik, you know. It was even it was for Maizel Maton is Shotter Binyonim Museum.
Wasn't it inside?
Yeah, we did have it here, basically. Other upon him, he said, the Rebbe Erfurt over there, how did Adam Arishan become involved in Azam Mitzvot Maizel? Means this is a hate which caused a Yerida B'Kol Ha'elam Kulam B'Kol Ha'ishtausend or B'Kol Tel L'Sayomim Kulam Ad Piyus HaMashiach. There's still a trace of the Ayin from Chet Eitzadas. The Beis Hamikdash was metakin it ad, dachas shibadachas or besochos. I remember the Rebbe that because it brings it to the Baal Shem Tov said that once Adam Arishan Ma'alosei HaAmitiyas, Gedurosei HaAmitiyas, he was once given the permission to go and he was Matayo Bo'elam Esalyenim Mahechel Lahechel, Begufa. He went and he was Matayo Kavyochel Mehechel Lahechel. The Baal Shem Tov gives out that one hechel to the other. He was just in some very big gilin, some very big hechel. As he stepped out from one hechel to enter the other, he sort of said to himself, "Oh, that's it." As I said, the Baal Shem Tov, I said, "Oh, yeah, that's it." Boing. From then, that began the whole reading of the reader. He felt the Maila from Avidose, Malose, or Milas Avidose. That's at the beginning of the ganze Chet. He stayed till the entire time.
It's like the Meister of the Aleph Rabati.
Huh? Ja, das ist die Anziehung in Aleph Rabati. Aleph Zeira. I forget, it's more than even the Aleph Zeira. Adam Arishan had the Aleph Rabati, that's what you mean. And so, that's indicative of the fact that that's a confused. But, yeah, and
But the Chet Eitzadas was. I thought the Chet Eitzadas was Mikorin on Matan Torah.
What?
Chet Eitzadas, I thought, was taking care of a Matan Torah.
Yeah, but only temporarily. Only for a moment. Only for a moment. But the Yad Le'er is Chosu. But the Yin from the Chet Ego, it is the Exhibit color. It's only temporal.
Same thing.
Yeah. Remember, the Chet Ego was also in Dachis. At the beginning, it was also in Yonim Ein Zeh. Same kind of Mochim Laharich. Or we can say that it was an Achiza mitzad the Erev Rav, as is Mashmin, the Rishonim. Although upon him, certain dagas in Bnei Yisrael were neachas b'zeh. We have to say that was the Yin of an Agosha Satzman. And if Dr. Rebbe, that Yin, that what Adam Arishan felt, Milas Avitze, Milas Ihu, or that was the beginning of the ganze, not only the beginning, Mizeh, Histayev, yeah, the Yin of an Chet Eitzadas. So that's what the Rebbe says here. The Ri'uma is the Yin from Haragoshes Abitol. However, what you use two words like that, then you're already expressing the Indian B'diuk K'moishahu. This is a beetle, and it's a beetle from Ma, and it could be, it's an Amitis a beetle. It's at the understanding of what beetle implies. Or if it's a Haragosha, yeah, that's already the beginning of not good. So therefore he says, Shanikra Riyuma, Shabitul hu b'murgash. Because he said the bittul is being felt. In other words, he's aware of his bittul. Amiti is a bittul hu she'enu magish klal shehu boter. That means he's not aware of the klal that he's boter. He doesn't know the difference between being a murgash and a boter. By him, it's not even murgash. The nafkimina bein zeh lezeh. Ukemoi b'bittul lifnei melech goder. He says, Ike amitis habittul hu kishe'eno magish klal v'shas bitulei eich shehu boter. He said, when you're in front of the amitius gadol samelech, then the bittul to the melech is dafki when you don't feel that you're there and that you're boter. You just completely always altogether. You just lose your whole gather. Matthias be'omde lifnei ha-melech. That was the Rebbe's masbir. Ukishi yishalenu odom ma nishtana kol kach ma'uscha. When somebody would say to him, why are you so different? You do this in ganzen ways. You're absolutely bottled to the melech. Why don't we feel that? Yashivenu lo yodaiti meuma. He'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean. In other words, the whole Indian never underwent by him a state where he wasn't called kach bottle and he had to be poiled. He was melchatchila bottle because mahusay mami. And therefore he doesn't understand what is the shaila. He's so involved in the etzim bittul elamela, he doesn't know. Klau was it enough community? Was it the head of being bottled? Klau was melech. And that's what we find. It's interesting. It's brought down in the mind from the Friedrich Rebbe. I think we also had this once in one of the shiurim. The Avraham Avinu, it's well known that it's brought in Svarim in Sifrei Kabbalah that the word Avraham makes two syllables, Eiver Ma. Avraham makes Eiver Ma. So what's it here for Ma? As we just saw, Ma is a mitius habitl. Eiver is a limb. Yeah. So what is a limb? A limb is something that grows out of the body, but even that it doesn't feel itself to be a Matthias. It's part of the klolos of the goof. And Berega, what it feels itself for a Matthias, it's not good. On the contrary. I'm sorry, you got it wrong. Avraham is two words. Eva Ma.
Switch the hey and mem.
Is a member bewezen. The ene van Ever is a thing that grows out of the body. And it doesn't feel itself. For what the Ever feels itself as an expression of the body, then that's the beginning of as well known. That's the beginning of Machla, as well known. And therefore there's an old saying in Yiddish, if somebody wants to say that he's not gesund in a certain part of the body, then they feel that's an old saying in the old Yiddish, if your hand's not beside us, it's like feel the hand. I feel my hand. Yes. I remember in the old days of some I must be used to suffer from bad throats. He used to say, feel the halt. It's asking him, how are you? So he said, I feel the halt. In other words, the way you feel an Ever, it's no longer an Ever. It's already become a Matthias, then it's on the contrary, it's Goyim, Ashinui Mahusi in its whole tafkid, which is to be Mishamish, the whole Klaus Aguf and the whole Pulas Odom. Once it becomes a Matthias, then it's then it's not Mishamish, the ganze Machse Adam, the ganze Mahalach Inyonim with the Odom. And therefore, Avraham Avinu, he was an Ever of Ma. In other words, he just grew out like Ma. His Ma was just something that grew out from the goof. אבל הכוס בלי שהוא ירגיש בזה או בלי שהוא ידע מזה. And therefore bringt the Rebbe dort in the ich sage what's written here over Beloshen Acher. He brings over the Ilu Hoyu Oimrim Lavrom Avinu. Avram Avinu, it's such a Baal Mesiras Nefesh. You've had such Mesiras Nefesh for all that you believe in and all you hold by it. Where did you take a Ziful Mesiras Nefesh? Meifel Akach there. As Avram Avinu would say, I don't know what you're talking about. What's Mesiras Nefesh? Yeah, it couldn't possibly be otherwise. I mean, that's the Nekuda. And Mamela Daftosai. Yeah. And one of the same thing here. Im Yishalenu Adam, Yashivenu, Einde Yodel Miuma. Miuma means not attack, is what it will. In other words, that the beetle is so meaty that he doesn't feel that he's bought a cloud. And doesn't he meet his in a beetle? And I say, versteht it. What's the word beetle? Beetle means nullification. Where there's a feeling, and the beetle is the two inyonim which are menagid, or negdi usela selase. Amamil is you might be matayali atzmocha. Elohim kein einer which is biemes he's botel and he's not magish metiuse or malo klau. Elohim is up Erikor Chemach ein boy take of ein boy to elders ben again to little film Chemasa Hashem okay helping in the inyanim is in charge morning by him. He just he's a bottle dik ad shein lo kushumar gosh klau. So the Rebbe pink verkehr. Dafke asa mensch he's out to be oimed al mamodei and carry out his particular tafkid, particularly hatkifas, because he's bittle mitzad emes. He's not bottled value as a shmata. He's bottled to elakus mitzad amitis ayin. If Amir elakus zocht zecharois durchem derechim. And therefore he said, "V'kein hu b'kedusha bittle atzmi upnimi hu she'eno magish klal shehu bater." I know that beetle who be etzem mahusay kach. It's in the very essence of his being. She'eno magish that's my klal u klal lemetias. She'eno magish klal shehu botel leidor. He doesn't feel he's bottled klal. Mishum zeh, and because of that, yochel liyes al ma'amodei u matzovei. He can be adequate on his maimon de matzu. And he can carry out with a certain, what you might call, gishtel. That's what Maimon Amatzu, gishtel. Certain, standing. He's not a Matthias for the Zich. She'eno magish is atzmei klal ladova ma. And since he doesn't feel himself ladova ma, he can be betachus, I take you for what's me. Medav. In other words, what? Dafke a bottle, the mensch, Dafke, he's the one that can, if he's bottled by Amitius, or betachel. And that's what we find by Rashbi, the Rashbi. He said, that no Simona Ba'alma, but all the Inyonim, Chad Ketiris Ketana, he was saying from Choisa, Matthias, Klau, the Yatzma, Eloya, Shum. And yet Dafke, the Amitis Atoike for Kedusha, expressed it to Rashbi, and he was the one who got up when they were talking about the Romans, and he said to Emerson in Pechel and in Pinklerein, he said that no, the Tachlis are Eifer von all the enormous Austuns a Fazier. In other words, the Dafke mentioned what he saw, the Amitis Ayin, a Bittel, and he understood was a Bittel Amiti. He was able to schmeck who was like the ganze Inif von Tachlis Ayesh. Vahipach HaKedush Lagam. I remember the Dafke the Rashbi, he had to flee because he was the Toikif. Kedusha B'Yais. And when he came out of the even though he had to lose some of that Toikif, even for what you might call attackingness. What's the word in English? I forgot. It's attacking, huh?
Aggression.
Aggressive. You want to say aggressive to Shah Yehudim and Shah B'nai Adam. That Rashbi had to, as a way, he had to tone down. Of immediately, no matters in the Gemara status as a Bekita, that immediately he came out and he went to Aliyad Tiveria. There was a whole business with the Kohanim couldn't come in and because there was a whole, they didn't know exactly where the quarries were. They had to make a big sivu, and the Rashbi was Megala the Baruch Binosi, Baruch Nevuasi, he was Mikal exactly where the quote is in my mother, they were able to make a path for the Kohenim, Be'yosha, B'li Sivu, Oroch, but they can't do it. And I stated there was a Psainam, or there, the one that put him in originally, the guys in Yehuda Ben Gerim was the guys. He was the one who put Rashbi in, he was the one who pimped on him. At the beginning, he saw that and he went out and he tried to be Mashana, the whole things that the Rashbi did in order that the Kohenim would be Nikshal. And later they would find out that he'd been Marshal there. So it's written, Yoev Be'ena V'nashe Gala Atomic, Gal Shel Atomic. So Rashbi had the cookie ton of him, second one, a Gal Shel Atomic. In the Medrash Rabbah, it's written more in detail that he wanted this, and he wanted that, and he wanted to be Choylech at the Rashbi, and he wanted to Chasson to get him a name, Heifach HaToyev, Bein HaBri, and that's a whole big Aricha story. Rashbi met up with him, and he said to him, my boy, what are you doing, and the whole thing, and in the end, Rashbi said to him, I've been Gemara just state, Yoev Be'ena V'nashe Gal Shel Atomic. We see that there's a toikif, a godel from the Minyan HaKedusha, Davki Be'oitzim Habitl was an ishtor, the whole Indian from Matthias, Klau. Mitzad Yemit is a Indian, then Davki he's able to be B'ma'amodim Ma'atzovei, Kamoishu, the gift that the Eibishter gave him, B'kol HaToikif, because he's not a Matthias Le'atzmei. Those Inyonim only gained their place in what you might call the plan of the Amitis HaKavon. That's the pshat. That's what the Rebbe means. It's not a pshat that he feels himself. He doesn't feel himself. What have been given him by the Eibusha, they become me'anit via a vehicle, but they remain what they are. Because the Eibusha wanted those things in the world, not Kivol. There's a Roish Chachamim, and there's also pinked was it the Matthias. Und nicht verkaufen sich, nicht leben und sein a Toffel, ihnen hat a Liuma sehr, Rachmoni nicht lan, und that's what we see by Malkeinu Meshachayim. But that's then, by the Rebbe, der Indien, der Toikif Apitl, שלא היה אף פעם כמוהו, und von deswegen der Toikif äußern die Emes כמוהו, הוא, Mami. ועד שישמיעו בזה, אז לא יהיה מזה מיומה, לא יהיה כל טוב וכל benefit, nicht zu Jiden und nicht zu den Goyim. Man muss taken von mir an. Welche Öfen Messavev sein, Kovasibes, aber der wird auch Herr und Mann nicht wieder Rebbe. It's a pretty gesagt, you know, there's this little thing they give out in the Beis Mashiach, this was it Gula Manyenach Shabbos, Professor Brunner was from our first line, he's not well. So I said, he writes a little thing in there, if you notice every week, I thought that's a final article. So he wrote this, sometimes I look at it, just have a few minutes, I give a cook after it, because I hold from him very much from Professor Brunner. Schreibt dort, Azamin Tzotach, he writes that every year, Rachmoni Niklan, in the world, there's about 1 million people or something die from malaria. You guys from the tropics, from Australia, we've heard of the disease called malaria. Rachmoni Niklan. I mean, nowadays, if they can give you all sorts of injections and minimize this negative. But Rachmoni Niklan, in the countries where people are poor and poverty-stricken, it hits a lot of people out in that time. It comes from a mosquito. It comes through a mosquito. You do it, unfortunately. So he writes there that they will mamti azamitzot mahalach, that they can produce a mosquito which is nakim is there. How do you call it? That he's mechusan, and he can't not he has it, and not he can be makabel from a trait. He's like a clean mosquito. So he said they put this mosquito inside a big kluv from hundreds of mosquitoes, and they wanted to see, and he was miskava. He had gefunden, I don't know, a way to be marble. Maybe they put in a female. I think it was well upon him. they started to be misgaber. Their mean was misgaber of all the other mosquitoes in the club. Die alle schlechter. Die alle was oben de Sache. And they laat, their zan and their mean was mevatel the andere. So he says that that's the infant misgabers right? And he said they found other charakim. Charakim means insects, nicht gute insects. They found, and they're working in the same direction. They're going to try and neutralize some of the bad things in charakim and make them leave them with their natural tendencies of a nicht mit der Schlecker. So then he goes on to say that the same thing is with the Indian from genes. He said the whole world nowadays, according to the scientists, it's a whole business with genes and genes and this. So he writes here that there's genes toivim and there's genes nishkin guter. And he said gradually the world is like in the world there's these gabas, good genes like the bad genes. And he said that's a sign that there's going to be an atil, a toiv in the world, liskava ala. And he writes that mia regasha Rebbe allow case and nasiyas. He said you can be boidig. That the moment the Rebbe came to America, the Nazis someone gave him found. That was the day of 28th B'Sivan. That was when the big invasion of the Allied forces against the Nazis occurred. And from Yom Ha'ton they were bottled. They fell. So Mishkat Tekuma, that was Kof Chesiva. When the Rebbe was Eilau, case on Asiyas, he writes that you could see in the world his gabbers of Komenei Twarim Tevim, and he said, this business with the gens, with the Moses, with the Geschäften, it's going the whole time. And he said it could be as far as that maybe there'll be a lot of animals and things in the world that gradually science will be able to neutralize their bad effect. That's very mind-boggling. Which means that we're running towards this whole idea, Go Zev Him Kevet, that it could be that there'll be gradually a yerida in the whole nazikinkeit that there is in certain creatures. Particularly this mosquito that kills people, he said that does. And he said that's a sign that together with the Rebbe, he said there's a iskabers, the genim atovim neged a genim. So he calls it the man. I mean, you'll forgive me for the saying. Aber das Sinyonim muss mit aufwissen, that's a dova amiti. There's a milchama in the world, the toiv neged ra. There's brutishum sofik. It's going on. It's like a isoirus of toiv, and the ra feels that it's being attacked very heavily, and therefore there's a iskabris of the ra kenege, and you can see it in people, and I've heard from a lot of people, it's not just me that Taina said, that Goyim, Beklau, and a lot of people in the world have changed, they're interested in more far-reaching issues than what they used to be. It interests them what you might call, what is the fate of mankind, where are things leading, what's happening, is it good, is it positive, or is it not, that sort of thing. And years ago, all they were interested in was drinking their beer or boozing or something. And now they might still drink a bit of beer, but they think something is a trachten andersing. And I remember, I told you the most about Anzac Day. I went out into the street last year. I was in Perth. I've been racing gas. Anzac Day. I went to take a walk in the morning before I done, and to freshen myself up. And the doctor says I have to walk. So over there, it's easy for me. I can go for a walk. Being English, but I saw the whole place is closed down. There's no traffic on the road, on the big main road. There's almost no traffic. So what on earth is this? It's not Sunday. It was only Wednesday. I keep saying, and I see all the cars are all parked on the lawns and outside the houses, and everything's quiet. Mom says he's still. Also, I see a guy jogging. He was jogging. So I said to him, hey. He looks at me like, who's that? I said to him, hey, what's going on? He's like, why is everybody at home? It's closed up, And the main road is mushbat, So he said, today's Anzac Day. I said, what are you kidding? What do you mean, Anzac Day? So Anzac Day is where they remember all the soldiers that were killed in the 3 wars. And Derechal, you should realize in the first war, the amount of Australian soldiers killed was mafia. I found out later in the day, in the First World War, the Australian, the Hakrova, what the Australians made was on 60,000 men were killed in the First World War. And then there was the Second World War, and then it was Korea. Anyway, they had this day of remembrance. So I remember when I was a kid in Australia, I said, it was a normal day to make a march. I said, living in the big building, that was it. Nowadays it's in guns and Europe. It's a complete, and we get in alle Städte the marches and with the manzig and we don't clear was it war and was it peace and hin and her. He said, oh yeah, it's a big thing. So anyway, was it a touch the fun? We walk a little bit further. I thought he was just jog away, and that was it there. I answered, and he said, but I don't bloody think that's the way they talk, in Australia. He said, they haven't learned that bloody thing. He said, they didn't learn anything yet. I said, what do you mean? He said, look at what's going on. He said, look at what they're doing in the world. He said, they haven't realized yet that you've got to learn from the 2 world wars. He said, they cut themselves. He said, isn't that amazing? Look at the silly mistakes they're making. And then he said, you're Jewish, aren't you? And I said, yes, I am. He said, look at what's happening in Israel. He said, is this fair? He said, what they're doing over there? He said, where are you guys? Amish. I'm not joking. I almost fell backwards. I've been come out already falling off the gas. Here's a man jogging away in the street. Sagt mir einer, sag mir zu Parsha. The person is jogging away in the street. And he's full of a whole theory about where the world's going. And he said, what's happening with you guys over there? What are you doing? It was just giving everybody, just letting them overrun you. He said, what's going on over there? That's just amazing. That is the Rebbe brought that into the world. That's what Professor Brown writes. There's a new Indian now that people are more aware. And I remember when I went to the Rebbe, not this year, I didn't go, but the year before, I was on a plane. I was sitting alongside a guy that had his own little television thing, he's looking at all these films and everything. All of a sudden he leans over to me and he starts off as I'm so passionate, berg, you're a religious man, what do you say about this and what do you say about that? Once upon a time, I go to gebadet or something, Oh ja, da war das. Nicht gewinnen. Jetzt kriegt rum auf der ganzen Welt. Aber das ist die Gabels hat Teuf negen der Ra. Das ist eine Milchome. Eine immense Maroche von der Teuf mit der Ra. Und ich sage mir over hier, Rachman in het land, wo sie liegen in die alte Marxism. Maar der verwezen sind in der Gelijk von Teuf bis Ra. But Marx had nicht gewusst von der. And Marx had gesagt, there's no Teuf and there's no Ra, there's only the Matorah. I mean, davon kommen auf der Matorah, and it doesn't matter what happens in the middle. Yes, let's tie a kitzat, only kitzat. And then we see these creeps. Yeah, do you ever hear, were they really sorry about what happened to all these poor bochum in the shul? And they shot them dead while they were learning Torah. Did you ever hear any of them say, really, they're terribly, terribly sorry about this? Go on. Gamlot ishmaat. But they say die etzem kuyek tamtis a hefer sheba hefer. Das ist die Linie von der Marxism. Aber über der Welt, der Rebbe ist kurz, I was really impressed with it. Ich mir soll sagen, das ist ein stark, Professor Brown. Das ist auch immer auf Muslim. He's a mensch mit a very interesting, versteht Ayin, guckt, die Yeshiras auf der Sache. Mishi Kitat Benetot, the Rebbe says, open your eyes and you'll see in the world that there's a different klang, how do you call it, a different echo in the world than what used to be. A positive one. And a ribui b'nei Adam, kol many sugim, choishvim, v'roitzim, v'chafeitzim, b'toy. By this man that 15, 20 years ago, they were interested in their booze, they were interested in their girlfriend, what they can do with. And that was all they were into. They didn't know anything else. From God, it was from God. Yeah, it's a smash of Ain't it? Way over the other side of the world, and nobody else around, a jogger, ik heb maar hacheraan en zo, man. Imam said, there'll be somebody who's bottle BM is any magisch is als met de door klaar. And he can be betuigen for, and that's the Rebbe. The Rebbe is betuigen for the key also. Because he was bottle, he didn't have any Matthias let me klaar. Amamira, says the Rebbe, das is die Inje van Amitius a Beetle. Well, that's called Beetle, das heißt Beetle. Das ist der Pshat, oi sich. In Amamira, oi sich, is the DMs, כמו שהוא. But כשמרגיש a Beetle שלוי, but if he feels he's Beetle, ואין יוכל להעמיד על מעמוד מצבי מפני a Beetle, and he feels the Beetle, and he can't stand on his mind, no, he negates himself, and he says, me, I don't know any place there, I'm so bottle. Ja, דהיינו, כשמרגיש a Beetle שלוי, ואין יוכל להעמיד מפני a Beetle, דהיינו שאין לו מוקים לעצמי, he can't find any place where he can possibly put his foot. Yeah, hat for sich kein Ort. He doesn't have any place to put himself, because he's so bottle. Yeah, says the Rebbe, ein noch anemi, das a Beetle, aber nicht das in der Mitte ist a Beetle. He said, Hagam, shezehu Beetle amiti. Das ist a Beetle amiti, aber das ist nicht amiti als ha Beetle. Das ist a Beetle amiti, aber das ist nicht amiti als a Beetle. שזהו ביטל עמיד מכל מוקים יש בזה עדיין בכינס מציאס דובו. He said there's still a metias. And if when you bottle or even a meat, there's only the emes. And then you can be betoichen van mijn with the matzav. Actually, yidoresh mashi yidoresh ze mashi. Oh, but this is a beetle, but it's a beetle in our even that he's magisch a beetle zijn beetle. Dan een nog aan hem, he's toch een bottle die command. But yes, but he's human see but so he said, betachlis had dakus. It's very, very delicate. But if you're a maven, you can pick it, and you can see that he's, you know, how to call it, he's always a zeer. He said, I kind of he can't really find for himself anything to do me, you know, who am I? And so him is a beetle. You know, the very fact that he says, who am I, that's what he's saying, that he feels himself. Was it Taishosnish Kinot? Who said you have to have a heart? Who's worried about a heart? And if, he said, das ist nicht der Tatlis Ayin, no, that's the Ayin from, how do you call it, Riyuma, that's feeling of the self, but Dakis and Betaklis Adar. And he says, well, Matimize, lo and that, is who, Shemagish is a beetle, Sheteiv roi mashu hu botel, who b'maylo madrege bi atzmei. He said, this is only Kitat Lamata Mizeh. He feels that beetle is a madrege. In other words, that to be botel, telakus, and Misha botel is a kli. If he's bottled, then he feels, and he has a sensitivity, and telakus is mishkala to him in inyonim musuyomim. Therefore, what is he aware of? He's aware of the fact that he has a mila. Oh, you know, he's bottled. It's really kedai to be bottled, because once you bottle, then, you start understanding things, you start getting things, and you're a Balmatrega. Who doesn't want to be a Balmatrega? I mean, you're on a level, you know, start a prostagonish. Mamira said that, that's Ayin, which is already Lamata, that he feels in such a way that he feels the Maila, and remember he feels the advantage for him as a Baal Madrega. It's not that he walks around with a big, you know, Schwitzer eye and he says, oh, give a cook, you guys, here I am, a Baal Madrega. But nonetheless, he's aware of the Madrega and he's pleased. He's pleased to say, that he has this union from Madrega and he gets certain Giluim and Alakus for Chul. And said, the Rebbe, it's not a union from Mamish Akboa. He said, well, is Akboa, Chas v'Shalom, Raksha Beetle, it's loyal, it's tfises, mocking, it's got a place. In other words, that Beetle, it's like as if he sums up the whole situation. And he said, oh yeah, Beetle is Kedai. In other words, he's aware of what it is to feel things, and he's aware of what it is to be bottled. And he says, oh, you know, Beetle is a zach, you know, Beetle is a mile, it's a matroye, and the far has a place. That first guy that we spoke about, he wouldn't even know what the heck. He wouldn't have the faintest idea what you're talking to. And if I said, the Rebbe, that's een van Twiese smoking. He said, V'zehu riyuma, das is the pshat. Please take a look at me. Please take a look at my beetle. Zu bemurgishu betwiese smoking biatzmei. Yeah? Now, so the Rebbe said it's not so much as that he's teufes the madrega as a Indian, but he's betwiese smoking biatzmei. He beemus holds that he has a chassid. In other words, he really does, the Dakis hold that he's a choshever. He's an important entity. Yeah? And Mistamer, he doesn't go around shraying, listen guys, please take care of me, I'm an important entity. But, he sees the place and what you might call the Maila that being bottled who has the Gabe Shari bin Adam, and remember here, certain Tvisa bin. Betoichat. Ubegashes, that's all bedachis. Everything we said up to now is still bedachis. Well, Sokosot the mentions Botel. Sokosot, he wants good that comes out of Bittel. On the way, he's getting what you might call in his own self a certain feedback. What you call, how to say, he's also getting a bit of pay, how they call it, feedback. Ubegashes, Inyan Riuma, Ubegashes, Inyan Riuma, Usharoitza, Sheeyan Nira Bitulay. He said, that's already the gases. In other words, he would like people to notice that he's potter. He said, he wants to be sure that people are, picking up the ray and picking up the vibe, that he's a bottle the commandments. I trust that people are aware of this. Not that he's bottled because of that. I mean, that would be a good. But Leachri was he totally bottled, and he realizes he is Bezer Maila. So the first Adam, he realizes he is Bezer Maila, and he's got a Tvisa smoking in the Maila. And if he's got a Tvisa smoking, maybe that's all about Tavke, that he's, how do you call it? Over here, something he would like people to be aware. Remember, in delicate ways, he tries to attract their attention. So it's righteous, he and near Biture. The Rebbe is still saving it. This is all a clip of Keneged Atzilas, and Atzilas Okos of his Elikus. Now, this beetle is still a beetle to Elikus. He's bottled Elikus. רק שהוא רוצה שיהיה נירה וניקה הביטל שלו. ויש בזה דחס הוראה, והוא שבזה גופה, מה שרואה שיהיה נירה הביטל כוונו של השם שמיים. Isn't that amazing? The Rebbe says that gufa, even though that's really the gases of Riuma, but he said it can have a dachas. What's it the dachas? He wants that people should notice he's bittul Hashem Shemayim. In other words, that if he'll be batel, then other people also. It'll be have a good influence. That he's some sort of a manig in a shul or some area, So he says that, if people will pick what it is bittul, then this will have a toeros, like coming in on him tevim. People will say, give a cookie, he's batel. This is the way to be. They'll also be that way. And my mother says that it could even be that he means it L'Shem Shemayim, and yet nonetheless he says this is a Ayin from Klippa. It's a Klippa Daka of a senior from Riuma, and he says, Nira Habitul Kavana Behu L'Shem Shemayim. V'imi yesh b'zeh Kavana Ruchniyas, Ruchniyas. Not just L'Shem Shemayim that it's good for people to be bottled to him because he needs to rule over them. No, it's good for them that they see bittul. They also get a musik what it means to be bottled. He's got a whole plan. Why it's kedai that he should show his bittul. And it's in Ruchni. Save kol save, who beginners mulu neshvayin about it. He said, this is gases. So he's not really bottled. He is, but he isn't. He's bottled to a cause. I mean, the Ebersters, they know him, but he's not really bottled because He wants that people should look at him as that's what the Ayin show Matthias. Our gases, he said, real gases, even though we call this gases, real gases is who should rate it came mitadatzme mitada yeshu shaboy. Chas Khalilah said that he wants that people should notice he's bittul because b'emes he's got yeshu. You know, the bittles are mean way to gain glory in the eyes of the Brias. You know, the bittle's not really Ayin as a bittle anymore because he wants the bittle kidei that people should say, oh, you see, he's bottom. And why does he want that? Because that's Yekor Teferes. Yeah, Gidul say Be'ena have. Remember, we said we've been through different targets. Of Amitis, a bittle is like we saw Eva, Amitis a bittle is where we wissen schon gar nicht, wir wissen nur, es ist das dem and dem Indian and it has to be carried out. Wherever there's any hargosha in the bittul, and that's not a meat is a bittul. Afal pish a bittul. Yeah, up pish a bittul. Piliplates. Mom is unbelievable. He said, "V'chol zeh hu inyan riu ma shu klipa di atzila." That's very interesting. This is the klipa from atzila. Yeah. Now, usually in Chassidus it's written the lashon sha klipa keneged atzila. Here the Rebbe says this is the klipa of Atzilas. So what we have to assume that he means with that lashon, b'derech yesh lema, in that Indian of klipa, that Indian from Atzilas that we described in the klipas, and immediately after Malchus, Rasi, this Indian of the Indian from Atzilas, the klipa, that's what he means. That is the Atzilas of the klipas. It's not mamish in Atzilas, it's not mamish master betoich Atzilas, das ist keneged Atzilas. Also ich bederach kol steht da was. Uba bria a klipa b'chinas yeshes mamish she'ena bottle elikut. Very fascinating. That even in Olam Abriya, we say it's miut. It's miut rav rubai tei. The little bit of yeshes which is over there is emes yeshes. And it's not bottle teller. Course, even though we say that Bria is the first Indian of the Amitis Indian of Ayin, still is Meir, you know, and Sheish Miyayin, Bedachis and Bedachis. Or wherever there'll be a Gera from Yesh in Bria, it's already Yesh Min Ha-Ayin. That means that the Ayin is already Be'elim. You remember the Yesh filtered, the Yesh is already Be'golim. So therefore the Rebbe said it can't be Amitis Abitl. Even if it'll be Batil, there's a certain Argosha Begolavi Mamish in the Bitl, be a Tzira Hubkinas Yeshes Yesa, and Klippa Datsia, Shu Betoikif Yesa. In other words, Rachman in the clan, Ayin from how the Klippas Mamish becoming or even from Teikif. Okay, Erech Teikif, how Oya Datsila, the Kedusha. Ala oyer da asiya de kedusha kach erach toikov oyer a klipa da asiya al oyer a klipa da tzilas. Therefore, it seems to me that when he uses the expression the Indian for klipa da tzilas, that's what he means. He means how it is in the atzilas of klipa, not how it is keneged oilam atzilas. No, how it is in the atzilas of klipa. Okay, my Cain is a b'mispah hoyer. Well, that's in what you might call the Eiches Adar, the Dachas, and the Pnimias, or Kamakein b'mispah ha'oiris, hine b'klipa da Atzilas, ha'mispah b'miut, v'hein rach zayin taktoinim de klipa, or b'briya de klipa, shomim gam chokmo bina de klipa. In other words, the further you go down, the more you gain Rachman in the clan in the mispah ha'inyonim shogach klipa. But you chaypach in the kedusha. So in other words, in Atzilas the klipa you are got a from midas, a hargosha. What we said, the midas, the union from midas is there shot. And then as you go down further, you go into a lower world, you get more inyonim. And he said, there you've got the union from Chokmobina, v'hein sichoy, amoin umoyav, shazo gimel rishonis de klipa. So that's a famous mimer for now. Totza is Moya from the middle of Rebbe. What he said to Rebbe Akiva Eger, what he brings over there, the Kesa, Chochma Bina, the Klipper, or that's the union from Sikha, Amino, or Moyav, as he brings out the whole Indian. Yesh Lema, that Moyav is really it gets at the Klipper, and Sikha for Amin are the Chokma Bid. Shazeo, Gimel Rishoines, the Klipper, Kamesh Kosov Moki Macha, Ubi Yitzira, Gam Fins Kesa, the Klipper, Kami Nebuchadnezzar, what Daniel said to him, Shanema boy, Daniel said to him, Ant Reisha de Dahava, you are literally the cop of the whole thing, that Nebuchadnezzar saw this big vision of a huge, like a statue or something. At the top there was this golden cup. So Daniel said to him that you're the Reisha de Dahava, in other words, that you're the Teikif for Malchuska, Chozak or Tofu, Daniel Timong that this mouth is going to be Teikif, but Tachlis Tekif is for Chuliver. He said, you are already the cop. In other words, that the yeshes and the clippers only got a certain trace of cop. You know what cop means, like Ayin. Kloli Ayin from Kesa, Uvasiya the clipper, Shom Gam Atik the clipper, Shu clipper Koshabi, Yesa, but that was Indian from Lovena. We call it Lovena Zaka, Dafki Mitzad the unique from the penis of Malchus. Yeah, that's here. Amamele. Dus het Indian, Kamoishahu, ben ik to the Makifim of Klipper, the Keteris is Mavar all these in Jan. And my mail there is going to is very interesting. We learn that after Pasha Zocher, the Indian from Zocher, the Indian from Klippers Amalek, the Alter brings in near the end of the big Maimah in Torah, the big Maimah of Yavir Lavush Malchus. There the Alter brings that there was really Amalek, Homan is in van Amalek, dat is de een van races goeiem Amalek, dat is Makifim. Klippen we één bij een bira, één bij Amalek, Zari, één bij hem in zo'n bira, en even Achrisse, ja, die oive, het was aan de ganze. De Alter is very fascinating giddick. Dat was die idee, de weder bij Messias Nefesh. De Makifim, de Kedusha, it's possible to be Mavara, even the Indian van Amalek. There was a certain bira came out of that, and that's a Chiddush Tova alidei the Messias Nefesh. That's what the Rebbe is going to say later. That in the Makif from Keteres, what does the Makif, the Kedusha Aki Takif, but that can be put a bira fill in the Makif Makoshim Beyesa from the meaning of Klippa. And that's what he says over there. That was what we found out later on. That B'nai Bonav Shalom and Gelan Torah and Tagan Tzutuas, because it was like a bureau in the, and he says over there, the Alter Rebbe, that even in Amalek there was a bureau. It's a Chiddush Torah. And he said that's the inner in Kedusha, there can also be a inner for Teikef HaOzer, Teikef HaMidiv, Teikef HaKi Otzum. That's the inner what they took out of Homan and this Arain in Kedusha. And that's Davki be, Bisman. Choyrach Lamed Peteikef HaKi Godel, etc. The Alter Rebbe brings that. So we see that Mamish B'Yomeinu Elu, B'Zmaneinu Elu, that that's the video made the Atuikif, Neged Ali Inyonim, what they gain a tremendous takeoff also. But that came, that it's already beaten, the Taich is that it's already beaten, because Haman lost. And Mamili, if you'll just reveal the takeoff, I mean, he's going to fall, there's no doubt about it, he has to fall.
What's the avoider then that you learn out of that whole Hezbollah?
The avoider is to say, we want Moshiach now, to mean it, to tell it to other people, and to daven barichas and to do everything you're supposed to do, that should be the main inyan. That should be the theme, that should be the takeoff from Monan by everybody, and including the Rebbeinu. Jetzt is a Zeit for takeoff from Monan, and for Zogen, Mitzvah. And it's a very interesting thing. If you do that to people, they buy it. I don't know, maybe I'm a Meshuggah. But I find that when you talk, when I was in Netanya, I drove one day with a taxi, I had to drive somewhere. He said, Pinky Format, I'm on it, taxi. He was a bit of a from here, so I keep on and everything. We got talking. Of course, I bring the conversation to the Yonim in Perik. And he says, Tagida, ta Chabani, Hani Resha, ta Medabek, אמרתי, כן, הוא אמר, אני שמעתי שהרבה חב"דניקים שאומרים שהרבי הוא משיח, ככה הוא אמר לי, אז זה עצמי. He had a kippah in front of him. And he said, מה אתה, so I said, yeah, אני מהם. He said, yeah. I said, yeah, אני לא רק סובר כך, אני גם מכריז כך. He said, oh, yeah. He said, so we had a whole schmooze, I can't say, right? And I told him what the Rebbe says. And the whole Indian now is only Moshiach. Forget all this other baloney. I mean, forget it. I mean, it's terrible. It's bringing to absolute heresy. So I thought, I've blown this guy. Either I've helped him or I've blown him. So we stopped not far away from that. We stopped, and then he said, I'm living through a difficult time at the moment. So I said, we're all living through a difficult time. So he told me somebody's privately on him, and I came and I said, the Rebbe says this, the Rebbe says that. So, and he said, ואתה אומר שמושיע, צריך להכיר. I said, כן, Roxy. So when I got out of the car, he said to me, אתה חיזקת אותי. He said, יש כמה אנשים שאני מציע אותם, והם אומרים דברים he said, ואתה חיזקת אותי. You were mechazik me, that's what he said. I didn't ask him, what did I say to you? Did you react to what I said? Did you hear what I said? I just told him, and then I was prepared to leave. He said to me, and I'm telling you, that is the Indian here. If you say things in the name of the Rebbe, but Pashtas, I keep shooter, and you're not Mahasas, Bashum Indian, people like it, because they realize. They hear what's going on, they know. And the whole thing is just closing. With all the army, with all the ganze Teiche von der Liuma there, and the ganze, the ganze Tier, it's had it, it's gone, it's lost, it's finished, all Medina. I've seen nothing that was still here. It's only Medina. So somebody said to me the other day, he wants to find out about Israeli culture. I said, forget about it, there's no Israeli anymore. I said, say Israel. What are you trying to call? Find out about the culture from Moshiach. If I'm in the Rebbe Shahov and saying the world, I got flache guys that's going Purim. Those are the message from Purim. The Mordechai. So Mordechai said to Mordechai said to Haman, and the Rebbe says in the famous secret, how was he permitted to do that? I mean, he put everybody in a sakana. It could be that he was even mutalo up, he didn't to be mistaken. Kana she given an ayat after besser gehen worships. Dus he brought the ganze Gesellschaft, the whole Briges, and the ganze. He said, wie hat das getan? They said, when you go with the Mr. Teiche, it was ein lachsweis לשום.
הילדים אמרו לו. הילדים אמרו לו.
מה?
הילדים אמרו לו.
Yeah, sure. Oh, it's more than a money. It's Weisfield your money. Bring this in Tachlis. Tough. Listen, I gotta go meet somebody now. You have to forgive me.
From Ringen?
But have a good Purim.
Purim from Ringen?
I don't know when it's going to be. We've got quite a lot of Barham here going on this time until after Shabbos.
What's that Shabbos?
I don't know when you're going to make it for me. That's a shame. I'm not great. The Dabbit.
Thursday night?
No, Thursday night. I mean, maybe a short while. The trouble is, I'm really not, I'm not well, it's very good. Anyway, look, we're not great. Maybe we can make much. Shabbos of a little tight, we could maybe have a show, maybe Thursday night. That's it. We're old colleagues, we're old comrades in war, we're trying to social
Brothers in arms.
Anzacs, right? True Anzacs.
Yeah.